This is a subject that I've recently been reading about. So they don't really call it Planet X anymore. They refer to it as Planet 9, and it is still a widely believed theory. And there's a very simple reason for this. We're noticing a common pattern with bodies that we find orbiting beyond the orbit of Neptune. Bodies like Sedna and Eris have very elongated, eccentric orbits, as if every single one of these objects are having their orbits slightly affected by an undiscovered object. Now, this could just turn out to be a nearby star that approaches too close to the Sun and has a tugging effect on some of the more distant objects from the Sun. This is where the possibility of an undiscovered planet comes into play. These days, it's referred to by scientists as Planet 9. Scientists predict that if this planet does exist, then it could be about the size of Neptune, or even a super-Earth. Because, if there's one type of planet that our solar system is missing that we're finding in a lot of extra solar systems, it's a super-Earth, so it'd be kind of nice to find one. I personally think it would be more likely to be a Neptune-sized object. Some theories suggest that this planet was originally formed much closer to the solar system, in the Genesis stage, but it was ejected by Jupiter. Despite being ejected, the Sun has managed to cling onto it just about, and it has settled somewhere in the outer edge of the solar system, way beyond Neptune. Other theories suggest that it could be a rogue planet that was captured by the Sun, and over time it settled into a distant orbit around the Sun. And others even suggest that it could have just formed out there, and it's had its orbit tugged on by nearby approaching stars into a highly eccentric orbit. Regardless of the theories of how it got there, if it does exist, it would explain a lot of the strange occurrences in the outer edge of the solar system. And there are scientists out there who are desperately trying to hunt for Planet 9 and find it. Assuming, of course, it does exist. Some people would suspect if this thing existed, we would have found it by now. Not necessarily. The outer solar system is very, very dark and dim. If this object exists, it's going to be very, very dim, because it's going to be so far away from the Sun. They estimate no more than 460 times further away from the Sun than the Earth is. To put that into comparison, Neptune orbits 30 times further away from the Sun than Earth. In fact, you can see it in this picture. There's a tiny little blue ring around the Sun. That's Neptune's orbit. And there's another possibility as well why we haven't found it. If it has a highly eccentric orbit like all the other objects out there, at one point in its orbit it will be much further away from the Sun than the other end of the orbit. And it will highly depend on where it is in its orbit, because the further away it is, the less light it has. The closer it is, the brighter it will be. What do I think of it? Personally, I think it's a great possibility. In fact, I kind of hope that it exists, and that it's discovered in my lifetime. I'd also be curious to see what they name it. Though sadly, if we do discover it, it's very unlikely we'll visit it in our lifetime. But like I said, guys, at the beginning, it's just a theory. There are other explanations out there for why the extreme trans-Neptunian objects have such highly eccentric orbits.